This is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community. Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and it's my goal here on the podcast to introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. Our title sponsor for this episode is Bringing Local Back. Remember when your community could turn to a local TV station or newspaper for the latest updates and affordable ads? Those days may be fading, but the need for local connection remains. That's why we created Bringing Local Back, a game-changing platform that restores local visibility and advertising power to your community. It's more than just tech. It's about driving engagement and creating new revenue for your chamber. Ready to see the future? Visit bringinglocalback.com to schedule your demo today. This is the future of local commerce. Our guest for this episode is Heather Lebischak. Heather is a dynamic and accomplished leader dedicated to driving growth, fostering collaboration, and advocacy for her community. As president and CEO of the North Jefferson Chamber of Commerce in Fultondale, Alabama, Heather has been instrumental in championing local businesses and enhancing the region's economic vitality. Under her leadership, the chamber has flourished, offering innovative programs, member-centric initiatives, and impactful events that contribute to the area's growth. Heather's passion for service extends beyond her role at the chamber. She serves on the board of directors for the Central Alabama Theater Group, the North Jefferson Rotary Club, and the Fultondale Library. Additionally, she plays a vital role in shaping the future of education as a member of the Career and Technical Education and Culinary Advisory teams for Jefferson County Schools. Heather also contributes her expertise to the Central Alabama Redevelopment Alliance Advisory Council, advocating for sustainable development and revitalization in the region. A dedicated community advocate, Heather combines her professional experience with her personal commitment to making a difference. As the group fitness director at Gardendale Civic Center, she promotes health and wellness while connecting with individuals in her community. She also serves in the nursery at our church, Church of the Highlands, reflecting her commitment to nurturing and supporting others. Heather's innovative spirit, ability to build meaningful relationships, and unwavering dedication to her community make her a respected leader and influencer in North Jefferson. She is passionate about creating opportunities for others, promoting civic engagement, and fostering a collaborative environment where businesses, individuals, and organizations can thrive. Heather continues to inspire those around her with her tireless efforts to enrich her community and empower future generations. Heather, we're excited to have you with us today here on Chamber Chat Podcast. I'd love to give you a moment to say hello to all the Chamber Champions who are out there listening and to share something interesting about yourself that maybe we didn't share in the bio already.
So I'm very excited to be here. If you'd have told me 10 years ago, I would have been reporting a podcast for a chamber, I would have said, what the heck's a chamber? This is not a world I ever saw myself in. I was a very happy legal secretary / paralegal, plan to retire there. And I won't bore you with the details, but a few changes along the way led me to chamber world, and it's a world I absolutely love. It's very different from legal, where everything's proprietary and protected. In chamber world, we're big on collaboration, so that's one of my favorite things about chamber world, but it was the hardest thing to get used to because I'm used to protecting information. That's the legal side of me. So it is definitely a world I did not know existed a few short years ago, but that I always see myself in now.
That's right. That is a interesting contrast from your previous experience and then entering the world of R&D where everybody's ripping off and duplicating or collaborating, as you said. That sounds better.
I like R&D better.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about the North Jefferson Chamber, just to kind of give us an idea of the size of the chamber, staff, budget, scope of work, just to kind of set the stage for our discussion today.
Absolutely. So about a little over a year ago, I was approached by 3 cities in the North Jefferson community, Fultondale, Morris, and Kimberly, with this idea of a regional chamber of commerce to give a bigger voice to their communities. Fultondale has a lot of businesses. Morris and Kimberly do not. And separately, they didn't feel that they could individually sustain a chamber, but together they thought they could, and that it would be, as our motto says, stronger together to have a bigger voice for this community. So that was in about October, November of 2023. And we officially launched the North Jefferson Chamber of Commerce on January 5th of 2024. It also happened to be my wedding anniversary. So it was a date I knew I could remember. So we launched last year. Since that time, we just had our first birthday. There is nothing I won't do in the name of chamber or community. So our first birthday featured pictures of me with a smash cake, like a first birthday should be, with cake all over my face and pigtails and all the things. But it was an amazing first year. We had we had 130 members. Our Facebook reach had grown. We were profitable year one. We were able to hire someone part-time. When I first started the chamber, my guess was that we were 5 years away from our first hire. And I'm actually in the process now of setting up interviews for our third hire, our first full-time hire. So we have been very successful. It showed nothing to do with me. I have an amazing board, and it was a need in our community. And I have the backing from 3 amazing cities looking to add more. We have city members, but as far as our funding cities, it's those 3, Fultondale, Morris, and Kimberly. But we are meeting with some others next month to see about bringing them on board, because the more the merrier.
Well, you guys have a vision, obviously, of the direction you want to take this, and it seems to be gathering some steam, both the membership and the attention of other cities, other communities to pull in. That's awesome. Yeah, we're kind of at a stage in chamber world where a lot of chambers are celebrating their 100th anniversary, or a few maybe even 150. So to just celebrate it 1 year, like it's going to bring a whole new perspective to the conversation that we have today. I know a lot of people, if they were to say, well, if we redid this chamber thing all over again, we would do it differently. So I'm excited to learn, what are some of the approaches that you took in establishing a new chamber. And maybe some of these things are things that still can be, ripped off and duplicated in an existing chamber that's celebrating 100 years. But there's also bylaws and things like that to deal with. So depending on where you are and what some of these things are, it'll be interesting to get your perspective today. But our focus for our conversation today will be focused around building a chamber that's right for your community. And I think that's very fitting, given your background. But we'll dive in much deeper on this topic as soon as we get back from this quick break.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rose.
And we're the founders of At My Community, a mobile app that can be customized to meet the unique needs of your Chamber of Commerce.
When we started At My Community, we envisioned a tool that would help communities thrive by simplifying communication and enhancing engagement. Chambers of Commerce face unique challenges, and we're here to help you tackle them.
At My Community helps the Evergreen Area Chamber of Commerce to create an app that keeps tourists informed even when their office is closed. They provide 24/7 access to local business information, which helps support the local economy and community engagement.
In Rocky Mountain House, we helped Rocky Chamber create an app with dynamic itineraries and digital resources for tourists, increasing local business engagement. The app has become an essential tool for the community, promoting events and boosting visibility for local merchants.
Today, we empower more than 200 chambers of commerce, campgrounds, and RV resorts to streamline communication, informing members about events, sharing business updates, and providing a digital hub for the community, all in one convenient app.
When you partner with At My Community, our team works closely with you to create an app that meets your chamber's unique needs. As your community grows, our app evolves with you. We are here to ensure you engage effectively with your members and streamline your operations.
Schedule a demo today at atmycommunity.com.
We can't wait to meet you.
Chamber leaders, I know each of you works daily to boost your local economy and take your Chamber of Commerce to the next level. But let's face it takes funding, and lots of it. You need to know Resource Development Group. For 3 decades, they have been the premier economic development fundraising consulting firm dedicated to helping chambers of commerce and economic development organizations like yours thrive across the United States. Their expert team specializes in crafting customized fundraising strategies that drive tangible results so you'll be able to fully implement your community advancement and economic development strategies. Imagine having a partner who strives to understand your community's unique needs, brings national best practices to bear, and has the proven experience to secure millions of dollars in funding. Resource Development Group has successfully guided countless chambers of commerce in creating vibrant, sustainable economies. With their comprehensive suite of services, from campaign planning and execution to investor engagement management to best practice studies, RDG takes the guesswork out of fundraising. You'll receive personalized support and innovative solutions that make a real impact. Don't just take my word for it. Chambers of Commerce and EDO executives nationwide have praised RDG for their dedication, professionalism, and impressive track record of raising over $2 billion for their clients. Ready to see what Resource Development Group can do for your chamber? Visit them at rdgfundraising.com to learn more. Elevate your community, strengthen your chamber, and unlock new possibilities with Resource Development Group by your side. They build organizations that build communities. All right, Heather, we're back. As I mentioned before the break, today we're talking about creating a chamber that's right for your community. So you come into this where you've kind of got a blank slate, I assume. I guess tell us the story. So you'd mentioned these 3 different cities approached you, but what was the vision? What kind of parameters were you given? Were you able to just dream big and go at it? Or what's it like?
That was the beauty of it. I came from a neighboring chamber that was like a 35-year-old chamber. It was fantastic. They were amazing. But when I was approached about this new chamber, I was actually on a personal level doing a fast with a friend of mine. And so for anyone that's ever done a spiritual fast, it comes with a lot of clarity. And so when I was approached about this, I immediately prayed over it, and knew that this was something God was calling me to do. And so I stepped out on faith. And by faith, I mean, I felt very convicted that God didn't even want me putting numbers on paper. So there were no dollars on the table, guarantees, anything when I signed on for this. But they had seen me because we were a neighboring community. They saw what I did there. They knew what I was capable of. And so when I came on board, there were no parameters. And that was a beautiful thing. They just wanted me to strengthen their businesses. They wanted to show their businesses that we're backing them because they're going to back you, which is a beautiful thing for a city to do. That's what cities should do. They should make it easy to operate within the city. And so all 3 cities were fully on board from the very beginning, both not just financially. Obviously, I needed money. That's a biggie. Yeah. But even to date, some of the councilmen and some of the councilwomen and the mayor, they're the most frequent sharers of things on social media. They advocate for me. They promote me. They're putting me in conversations and at seats at tables that I wouldn't have otherwise. And so there really were no parameters other than do what we've seen you do. And so I heavily relied on them. The first thing I had to do was start a board. There's no handbook for starting a new chamber or a new business for that matter. But chambers particularly are tricky because we are, as we all know, we're a 501c6. There's stuff for 501c3s out there. 501c6 gets left out of all that. So there's a lot of policies and procedures that were like, oh, we think it'll follow that, but we're not sure. So there was a lot of guesswork in the beginning. I had just gone through the accreditation process with my last chamber for the state, and that included updating bylaws, drafting policies and procedures, an employee manual, all the things. There's about 40 items you have to have.
Brushed up
so I had
on those
just
things.
gone through that with my former chamber. So it was kind of fresh on my mind. So I actually literally yesterday just finished it up for this chamber because I wanted us accredited after 1 year. Like I wanted it to be like, that's the first thing we do. So the first biggie was forming a board. And I was coming into cities that I wasn't as familiar with. The chamber I came from was a neighboring city, but these communities I didn't have as strong of ties. So I relied heavily on the city council and the leadership in and the mayors in the cities to recommend people for the boards because I wanted equal representation from all my cities as well as all the other intersectionality points you want in diversity within a chamber board. So relied heavily on them, but they truly just said, come in, do your thing. And it was, oh, and by the way, do you need an office? Because here's free space. So they were
That's
fantastic. I have a free office, fully furnished, a free boardroom. I have a huge venue I operate in that I can use for all of our events. So they were in all three cities. They don't all have the same capacity as far as space, but they have all offered space on whenever I need it. So that's a huge hurdle I know a lot of chambers have to deal with, is renting and stuff like that. And that is not one I have luckily had to face.
So are you in a city office, a city building then, or?
So the city of Fultondale purchased, it used to be an outdoor shop. It looks like a big barn on a hill. It's a beautiful building, but the city purchased it and uses it as an event center. And there just happened to be an office and boardroom side by side that were fully furnished that they weren't using. That's so perfect. They're like, here, you want to go there? And hey, we got an extra copy machine. You want it? And the venue is fabulous. It's gorgeous. I could not ask for a more beautiful venue. So I operate within the venue. And so when we have events, everything's right here.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I can imagine it being a little bit maybe intimidating, creating a board from scratch and not knowing the connections and, who those players are in these different communities. So did you have an idea as you went to the different cities of what you were looking for as far as representation from each city, or were you just looking to get recommendations from them as to who they think would be a good fit for the board? What was your approach to that?
Yeah, that was definitely the scariest part, because the board is who you answer to, who you're held accountable to. And in chamber world, boards aren't always super familiar with the operations of the chamber. It's just a very different world. And so answering to people that don't know the inner workings is always hard. So you want people that are going to trust you, empower you, not get in the weeds with you. And I just didn't have any connections to know who those people might be. I knew I wanted diversity among industry for sure, and diversity among other aspects as well. But I heavily relied on the city leadership for who those were. I wanted prominent people in the community. So I have a fantastic board. We started with a board of 6. We now have 8, but we started with a board of 6, all of which I consider friends now, none of which I hardly even knew when they signed on. So 4 of them came by recommendation. One actually asked me to serve, and I'm so glad he did. He is in the nonprofit world, so he kind of gets what I deal with. And then one of them was just a kind gentleman who sent me an email when I left my last chamber and said, hey, we're with you. Where are we going? We've seen what you do. And I was like, oh, that would be a good guy to have to my corner.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's awesome. So you had mentioned that these 3 cities kind of came together, approached you about this. So there must have been some sort of a vision of what they wanted to see be accomplished. Were you able to expand on that vision? What kind of room did you have with that, and how's that evolved?
Right. So there, as I mentioned, Fultondale has a lot of businesses. So theirs was more on the business support, pulling me into economic development discussions as they are courting a business, pulling me into those discussions, having me help with those, some help with event planning. Morris and Kimberly are not as business heavy. They're more, I can't say the word, rural. It's a very hard word for me to say, but they don't have as many businesses. So theirs was a little bit different. Theirs was more on the event side. So I helped them more with events. And a lot of the vendors at those events are my businesses, but theirs is more on the event planning side. Kimberly especially. Morris has more businesses probably than Kimberly. So I do have the businesses there. The biggest thing I'm excited about with Morris is they are starting an incubator space that they are going to have available. And we will have space within there that we can operate and do trainings. And they are going to target minority-owned businesses for that space to give them a inexpensive place to get started while they're getting on their feet and getting their business off and running. So all of them had very different needs. And so, but I had luckily I did have fantastic relationships with the leadership to know up front what those needs were and be able to meet those needs, adapt as I went, and realize even more needs than they thought they knew that I can get plugged into and help out with.
And I'm sure as you go about recruiting members, you're hearing more of what the needs are as well, so you can continue to evolve and adapt. But tell us a little bit about that as you approach members. So you're in an area where it sounds like there wasn't a chamber that existed currently. So as you approach businesses and talk about the value proposition of a chamber and help them get the buy-in and the vision of what it is that you're trying to accomplish in the community. What's that pitch like? How do you make that approach to these businesses who just are not familiar?
Right. Well, particularly in Morris and Kimberly, they were very unfamiliar with the chamber concept. So the first, and as I mentioned in the beginning, if you'd have asked me maybe 7 years ago, I would have been like, what is a chamber? I have no idea what that is. So the first thing is I felt like before I start trying to get you to join, I need to get us established. I need us be active, a good website, active on social media. I need you to see me at some things and see what I can do before I ask you to pay me money to offer you services that you don't know what are. So we spent a lot of time building that up. We started in around actually December 8th or 9th is when I officially started here. So I spent that whole first month really building our brand. Our mission statement is huge to me. I tell my board, I drill it into my board. They're probably sick of hearing it, but everything we do is viewed under the lens of our mission statement, which is we advocate, connect, educate, and fight for businesses in the North Jefferson community. And in doing so, strengthen the communities we serve. So we do want to strengthen the communities, but it's always a byproduct of the business community because that's what we're here for. So I spent that first month. We didn't even start accepting memberships until January 5th, and that was intentional. One, if I'm being completely honest, taxes were a lot easier to wait till the next year when we were so close. Yeah. But the other reason is I wanted to spend some time kind of showing them who we were and what we had to offer. And so January 5th, we launched, and I believe don't quote me on this, but she says that she's recording a live podcast.
Yeah, right.
I think we had around 36 founding members. So 36 joined on that first day. And so a lot of it is just putting together materials to educate them on what we have, relying heavily on referrals. We actually have cards we deliver that say, join us, we're awesome. And it kind of goes through what we are as a chamber. Now that we've got a year under our belt, those cards also reflect a QR code with our 2024 annual report that shows everything we did last year, from our social media reach to our audience, to our members, to our events, so that they know kind of this is what they accomplished last year. Twofold. One, for new members to see what I can do, and two, for existing members to see where their money went, because I take that very seriously.
Yeah. So
as well as the funding cities.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you talk about creating an organization where you can be that voice for business, are you approaching advocacy at this point as far as legislation? Are you getting into that at all? Or
So it was part of my plan from the beginning was to get, and initially I wanted to have some kind of government relations field. I'm coming into my final year of IOM, which Chamber people will know is Institution for Organization Management. And so I met with someone last year to get some insight on how to launch that, because it is not an area I know anything about. And so in meeting with her, she was fantastic in recommending, one, avoid the word government. And I was like, okay, noted. So we did launch last year our public policy committee. So we are not on the advocate side yet as far as lobbying or anything like that. We exist right now solely to inform. Particularly, I know everybody, the BOI report was back and forth. And so we were keeping our members informed of that, most of which had never even heard of it. And at the time, it would have been a big deal because it was an enormous fine if you didn't pay. And so right now, our public policy committee is strictly to inform. We hosted a State of the City event in Morris and Kimberly last year, which to everyone's knowledge is the first one they've ever had in that community. We did that under our public policy. We educated on where to vote, how to register to vote, how to do absentee ballot, all of those things. There was a group of us from the chamber were actually in Ireland over the election. So we all had to do absentee ballots for that, but mainly just to keep them informed of policies that impact them. I do feel like in the future, as a regional chamber, I do feel like we will take that step towards being a voice to advocate for our businesses when it comes to legislation, and maybe even going as far as to hire a person that's their job to handle that, because I do feel like I do want to be that voice for businesses, not just at a local level, but at a state and federal level as well.
Yeah. It's exciting to see, a chamber starting from scratch, and you can really go any direction you want to, and you don't have to do what other chambers are doing either, right? Like you can
Right.
kind of chart your own path. Have there been any unique approaches as you've kind of crafted this custom model of a chamber for these 3 cities that you're like, from my past experience in the chamber, I want to get rid of this, or I want to bring this in? What are maybe a couple examples of some unique
The
approaches?
biggest one I came into, I came from a 35-year chamber, and they were fantastic. It was a great city, a great business community. But there wasn't a lot of records. Like if you try to look back and see who won this award last year, who was even the executive director, I ran across a piece of paper in my desk that had the founding date. And that's the only reason I knew the chamber was 35 years old. And it wasn't neglect on anybody's part. It's just nobody thinks to write stuff down. And so that was one of the things when I went into this, I was like, I'm writing everything down. Every event we have, we're going to know if we had a women in business luncheon last year, we're recording the winners. We're going to know from year to year. And that annual report I did, it's basically a chamber scrapbook. So from every year, they'll be able to look and see who did what. So that was the biggest thing I took with my old chamber, was to record everything. And the other one was to create a very good, not just a policies and procedures manual, like a formal document, but a obnoxiously detailed one of how to do everything, a how-to manual. When we put on this event, we send them postcards on this day. We get sponsors on this day. We get posters to where, heaven forbid I walk out and get hit by a bus tomorrow. They've got that document to know how to do it. It makes training a lot easier as we're looking to hire. But just the importance of doing that, taking the time. And it's hard because I started off as a one-man show, so there wasn't a lot of extra time. But taking that time to draft that document, just a simple bulleted list of how to do everything we do.
Yeah. And even, as far as creating policies and procedures in today's world with AI and everything, like there's tools that help with that process as well, that will, if you start a process from start to finish and AI can watch you do it and then, write the bullet points that here's the detailed steps of how to do it. It's pretty cool stuff. So it's a good time.
ChatGPT knows me well. Right. I will say though, when I first, if you were to Google chamber bylaws, you're going to find the same ones. We all use the same ones, same with policies and procedures. And part of that's how collaborative we are. We are happy to share. But when I was doing the policies and procedures, at the time, AI was still, the robots are going to take us over. Don't use it. Yeah. So I did actually, if you'd looked at my desk, I had 5 of them spread across my desk, and I literally typed them from scratch, picking out the pieces that I wanted from each one. Now, my background, as I mentioned, was in legal, and what we did was draft these long plan documents. So it wasn't super foreign to me, but it was a tedious process. Now I do rely heavily on AI, and particularly ChatGPT. I made the mistake of saying yesterday, I was like, it does 80% of my job. And I was like, let's word that better. It frees up. It allows me to be 80% more efficient and do other things, which is the truth of it. The times I would spend drafting social media posts when I really should be doing something else, as opposed to worrying about putting something cute. I'm 44 years old. I'm past that. I don't know the cute things or the hashtags or all that. So I rely heavily on that for when it comes to social media.
Yeah, that's great. Good takeaways. Any other lessons from this, the last, we'll call it year and a half of kind of ramping things up and first year in a chamber? Any other things stand out to you that may be beneficial for other chambers listening to, as they do their R&D, things that stand out?
The biggest one for me is I learned a lot of patience. I am a microwave. I want it quick, and I'm going to build a plane as I'm flying it, and I'm totally okay to do that. And if we land on one wheel, that's okay. We got down. Mm-hmm. But I did learn there are things where it's okay to not do immediately. Let it simmer just a little bit. Think on it a little bit more, whether that's responding to emails, putting up events, planning events. I have been known to plan an event with a week's notice when I get a good idea. And so sometimes that works out, but I have learned to slow down and think it through, talk it out, especially now that I do have a colleague that works with me who is fantastic. And she brings out things that I didn't think about, which is fantastic. She is a perfect complement to me as far as putting events together and programming. And so as we're looking to hire, I've relied heavily on her because the things she's looking for and asking are very different from the things I am, but equally as important.
Right. No, that's good. Well, I like asking everyone that I have on the show for maybe a tip or a strategy for chambers that are listening and trying to take their chamber to the next level. What kind of tip or action item might you share with them?
I think the biggest one, and it goes back to I have vivid memories of being a chamber newbie and going to my first chamber event and listening to somebody talk about this $100,000 banquet they just threw and totally freaking out thinking, oh my gosh, I'll never get there. I'm doing this all wrong. Take everything with a grain of salt. Everything's scalable. Well, I say that. Everything is not scalable. You'll hear that all the time. It is not true. Not everything truly is scalable. Not everything is for your chamber.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest takeaway is does it fit your culture? Number one, does it fit your mission? Like I said, I drill that into my people, but just take everything with a grain of salt, take it all in, and then figure out what it is that your chamber needs to do. What does your chamber want to be known for? And do those events align with that?
Yeah. I'm glad you made that designation that everything is not necessarily scalable because not
you heard me say it because I just hear it all the time, but I was like, not true.
And I'm guilty too. I've said it before, but you're right. Certain things are not for your chamber, and you need to know your community. You need to know where the value proposition is and what's worth your time. What are you going to put your time and energy into, and what's really going to have a return and be valuable to your members and to your larger community. So thanks for mentioning that. We all needed to hear that. But Heather, as we look to the future of chambers of commerce, how do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
I think they're going to continue to be more and more relevant. As people become, like I said, I came into a community where a lot of people didn't know what the chamber was. As they realize, as the complexities of starting a business, it's hard. It's difficult, unnecessarily so, in my opinion. One of my goals is to sit down with our cities and create a how-to of how to start a business. When you come into Fultondale and start a business, this is how you do it. And also in that process, figuring out that we really need this. And so I'm hoping chambers can play a bigger role in that, not just encouraging them to come, but helping them to get started. And so as we can offer trainings or advice or expertise in that field, I do think that we're going to become more and more relevant as chambers and more needed. And as people realize, this is something I need. This is a business expense that is a must for me.
Yeah. So earlier you said there's not a guide for starting a business, but it sounds like you're writing it. So maybe, version 2 is the guide of how to start a chamber.
I hope so. Like we're about to do taxes and I'm like, please don't have screwed up anything too bad.
That's right. Well, Heather, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share any contact information for listeners who might want to reach out and learn more about how you're doing things, the approach you're taking. Where would you point people, and what's the best way for them to reach out and connect?
So our website is www.northjeffersonchamber.com. And then my email address is president@northjeffersonchamber.com. I am a Gen Xer, so I regularly check my email. I will respond. It's definitely the best way. I'm a texter too, but email is probably the best way to get in touch with me. And I would love to hear from anybody, answer any questions, anybody looking to venture out and do this thing. I have not yet had anybody to share this with because it's just like you mentioned, most chambers are 100, 150 years old. No, I was in a board meeting the other day and I'm on the state board of directors, and our director, who is amazing, was talking about growing the state board and reaching out to the existing chambers. And she made the comment, she said, it's not like we can just create new chambers. And one of the ladies was like, well, Heather did.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But it's just not something that happens. And so it would be cool to be able to help someone else through the process, even if it's just lending an ear to know, yes, I know how frustrating it is.
Yeah.
And there's not answers.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And we'll get your contact information in our show notes for this episode to make it easy for listeners to connect with you. But I do appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, your experience. And it's not every day we get to hear about a chamber being started from scratch. So this has been fun. And I appreciate everything you've shared with us today.
You're so welcome.
If you are a chamber professional, please subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. When you subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast, new episodes will show up in your podcast app each week as they are released. If you're finding value in this podcast, please leave us a rating and a review in iTunes. But most importantly, please share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues that are in the industry.